First off, let's jump into what Cardi B's complaint alleges against Tasha K. It alleges 4 things. First, slander, then slander per se, libel per se, and then invasion of privacy regarding false light and defamation towards her character. So we have 4 issues here that I'm going to quickly analyze, which you would have to prove since this is what is alleged. So let's start off with slander and slander per se. Defamation in itself is defined as false statements made either spoken or written. So if it's spoken, it's slander. So just think spoken, slander. They both begin with an S. And then libel is false statements that are written, that defame someone's character. And so typically you have to prove that they were intentionally made, that they were published, to a third party or into the public. You also typically have to prove damages with both slander and libel. However, in this case, this is a special case because there are 4 categories where you don't have to prove any damages, and if you can prove that you fit one of those categories, then you have what they call slander per se or libel per se, which means essentially the statements by themselves are so terrible, so awful, so defamatory that you don't have to prove damages. So in this case, Cardi is claiming both regular slander and slander per se, and then also libel per se. So we already know that they were intentionally done. They were published to the public through social media and YouTube. So all those elements are met. So really the issue is, number one, are they true? Because, the biggest defense to a defamation suit is truth. So Tasha can prove that any of these things are true. That throws out these allegations. But also as it relates to the slander per se and the libel per se, do the categories of things that she spoke about fall into those 4 categories that I mentioned? So we first have, if you speak about someone committing a crime, or the second category is anything that speaks to someone's sexual relations, like if they're promiscuous or things of that nature. Then there's a category of if you accuse someone of having some sort of viral disease or STD. And then last but not least, if you are alleging or you're publishing statements, again, either written or oral, that speak to the person's profession. So if you said, for example, a lawyer stole money from a client and they really didn't, that's defamation per se, because stealing from a client, that's an ethical violation. They could lose their bar license. So if you're making statements that could hurt that person's professional reputation. So with that being said, what are the statements here that Cardi is claiming Tasha made through these various social media posts and video posts on YouTube? She accused her of, number one, herpes, so that falls in the STD category, and then also prostitution, which is a crime. There was also, I believe, an allegation of her, and this is actually being addressed in another case, actually, ironically, against Cardi, that maybe she had drugged men in this prostitution ring, didn't have sex with them, drugged them, and didn't have sex with them and stole their money. So all of this is criminal, what were said in these statements. Herpes obviously falls in the STD category. She then also accused her of doing cocaine. That's not necessarily defamation per se, because I don't think that would necessarily hurt her career. And doing drugs is not a crime, but obviously selling drugs is. I guess if you were in possession of drugs at the time of an arrest, that would be a crime. But I don't think her doing cocaine necessarily would fit under the slander or the libel per se. But I do believe that alone the herpes and the prostitution claims would. So with that being said, if she can just prove those 2 things, she out the door doesn't have to prove any sort of damages and has Tasha K on slander per se and libel per se. Now, the libel per se comes into the actual written captions. So remember, libel is written. So yeah, the videos, you can hear the videos, but the words and the actual captions of these videos, whether they be on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, that is where the libel is coming in. That's the written part. The speaking part are the actual videos. What else? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. And then in terms of damages, if she were to actually try to prove damages, let's say she couldn't prove libel per se or slander per se, then she would move on to trying to prove damages, and she believes that she can prove intentional emotional distress and also damage to her name, character, and reputation. So she's saying those are her damages, even if she couldn't prove slander per se or libel per se. Last but not least, you have evasion of privacy. So that was the fourth allegation. Evasion of privacy covers a lot of things, but in this case, the subcategory is false light. And that's when you, again, put someone's character under a false light. You say false things about them. That's a subcategory of invasion of privacy. And so that's the fourth allegation in the complaint. Step, keeping up with Kanye. Oh, Kanye. So there are a lot of things going on in the legal news world, just the general trending news world about Kanye. First, I just want to address his recent arrest in LA a couple of days ago for criminal battery. It was allegedly for, him pushing potentially a fan on the ground. He's since come out and said that it wasn't a fan. It was paparazzi that was invading his space. Obviously, in order to prove battery in California, you have to intentionally and unlawfully touch someone in a harmful or offensive manner. And it has to, not be an act of self-defense or defense of others or reasonably reprimanding a child. So in this case, obviously he could argue that even if he did push the guy down, right, if they have evidence of that, then maybe he was doing it in self-defense. And so if it was in self-defense, then obviously there goes the criminal battery charge. Either way, if he's found guilty, the most he would face is 6 months in jail or up to a $2,000 fine. So that's that. We'll continue to follow that story. On the other end, speaking of keeping up, Kim Kardashian recently had a birthday for Chicago, also a couple of days, like right after this alleged battery with Kanye, and supposedly he didn't know the address. He went online, public cry, like, hey, Kim and no one in the family will give me the address to the birthday party. His public cries, I guess, worked because he eventually was pictured at the party. But now Kim and her team is saying that, she thought that, he was having his own party and it was always supposed to be two parties. Again, that may not even be true. It just may be her doing PR to cover it up. But either way, I think because Kim has recently in the divorce filed to be considered a single person because he refuses to move forward with the divorce filing, that she should also, or he should just put something down in terms of a temporary visitation and custody order in place until the divorce is over, to prevent future things like, the birthday party situation from ever happening again. So anyway, we'll continue to follow and keep up with Kanye. He seems to know how to always stay in the news. Nicki Minaj, is it true or false that she's filing a lawsuit now that a harassment suit has been dropped against her? This is so true. If you haven't been keeping up with Nicki Minaj and her husband, Kenneth Petty, last August, the person that accused him of rape many, many years ago as a teenager, Jennifer Hough, I believe she pronounces her name Hough, Hough, then said that Nicki Minaj and Kenneth were essentially harassing her to retract her claims or, admit that it hadn't happened, or essentially just harassing her to change her story, even though he's already served his sentence as a teenager and things of that sort. So anyway, I guess she had enough. She files this harassment suit in August against Kenny, and it also includes Nicki Minaj. But then all of a sudden, this past week decides, you know what, I'm going to volunteer and dismiss the case against Nicki Minaj, but I want to keep it going against Kenny. And so Nicki Minaj, I'm sure, is very happy that she's no longer a part of the case, but her husband obviously is still a part of the case. And the case specifically alleges harassment through intimidation and obviously bribery, that they tried to pay her off. So Nicki Minaj's lawyer has expressed that this was like a shakedown and that this was just an easy... she tried to basically include Nicki as an easy way to get a settlement and not take this to court. Basically a shakedown of a celebrity, and it didn't work. And so now Nicki Minaj's lawyer is saying, you know what, you dismissed the case against my client, but now we're going to take you to court, you know, to recoup legal fees for this frivolous filing against Nicki. So we will be continue to follow this case closely as it relates to Nicki Minaj being potentially successful in her suit and recouping her legal fees. And then obviously we'll continue to see if the case against Kenny will continue on regarding the harassment. Actress Tiffany Haddish, is it true or false that she may be getting out of her recent DUI? This is so true. If you've been keeping up with Tiffany lately, a few days ago, she was arrested in Georgia after allegedly falling asleep at the wheel. They said that she was definitely driving under the influence of alcohol, possibly weed. She had this viral mugshot going around with her smiling in her mugshot. So anyway, obviously she's not taking it that seriously, but it just went viral. Like, everyone had something to say about it. She did bond out at about $1,600, and she was only in jail for a few hours. So with that being said, let's get into the law. Part of why this has gone viral is that there was a mention that she may have also been under the influence of marijuana, which I don't know why that's a big deal. Most states have marijuana as legal at this point. Obviously, you shouldn't be under any sort of influence of any intoxicant while driving. But for whatever reason, people made a big deal about the weed. Here's the thing on the law in Georgia. It's still going to be considered a DUI whether you did marijuana or any drug, right? Or alcohol. They put it all under DUI. So it's not going to make a difference. I know some states have DUI versus DWI. No, in Georgia, it all falls under a DUI. And to be found guilty, because at this point, you know, she was just charged and bonded out. She has not been found guilty yet. I want to emphasize that. You have to be found driving or operating a vehicle, number one. So driving or operating a vehicle. And also, you have to also be under the influence, again, of drugs and alcohol or intoxicants. So in this case, she allegedly wasn't driving. She had just pulled on the side of the road. So some people are like, well, she wasn't driving, so she can't be found guilty of a DUI. However, Georgia has expanded their DUI law that says operating a vehicle. So even if you're not driving, they consider operating a vehicle physical control, right? So if you have even any physical control of the car. So what's an example of that? They're saying even if the key is in the ignition, right? That is physical control of the car. That's considering operating a vehicle. So obviously they would have to prove all this. I'm hoping the key was not in the ignition so she can get off on the technicality that she had already pulled over to be safe. She's been recently, if you don't know, been mourning her grandmother who just passed away, her dog, even the guy off of Full House who recently passed away. That was her friend. That particular comedian was her friend, Bob Saget. So, you know, not to excuse, you know, getting under the influence and getting behind the wheel. But she's been going through a lot. If for some reason she is found guilty of that DUI, which, again, technically she may be getting off, depending on the facts that are found in the case, it's a misdemeanor. So any misdemeanor in Georgia is up to 12 months max. Obviously, this is her first one, so I don't even think she would serve any jail time at all. So we will follow this case closely. Let's continue to keep Tiffany Haddish in prayer. Ariane Curry almost broke the internet when she accused Love and Marriage Huntsville producers and Oprah of using her and unfairly benefiting off of her likeness. This interview was done with Tasha K, with Unwind, with Tasha K's podcast and video blog. Take a listen.
Love and Marriage Huntsville, every episode, every season has built on you.
My likeness.
And you have yet to collect one dime from appearing on that show. But yet every show, every season, Carlos King, Melody Holt, Martell Holt are milking
creating a false narrative on my behalf, not really letting me speak and tell my side of the story.
If you don't follow the Love and Marriage Huntsville show, Curry is the mistress of Martell Holt, who stars on the OWN TV show with his then wife, Melody Holt. The affair and extramarital baby was played out on the show. However, there is a problem with Curry's likeness legal argument. She already admits that she gave permission for them to use her voice on the show with her taped phone conversation. However, the show never used her image, video of her, or her name on the show, which is all included under the law of likeness, aka the right to publicity. Take a listen.
A phone conversation, and I thought the phone conversations would lead up to, I would be able to film, but whatever, it didn't. Even, it was August, the second week of August, they wanted Martell to go on a date. He said, okay, I want to film with Ariane. They said no. Reunion, 3-part. He's texting me, can we film a phone conversation? I said no.
Recently?
Yes, from this last reunion that was played, they wanted me to film another phone conversation. I said no. Yeah. So it's just like, why are they even doing this to me? Like,
Can you contact that attorney Melody was fucking and ask him to sue on for your likeness? This is ridiculous at this point.
Although she may not have a strong likeness argument, she may have an argument perhaps for false light or defamation. But we all know the best defense to defamation is the truth. And she, in fact, had an affair with Martell Holt. Leave your comments below on what you think about her claiming that on the OWN network and the producers are using her likeness without, her benefiting, and they're the only ones that are benefiting. And let us know if you think she would actually have a case if she tried to proceed with this in court.